Well, hello, students. This is Dr. Todd again. Thank you so much for watching the interview that I did with my father about our interesting fossil. I had some wonderful questions from you, and not just that, I got some great writing. So I contacted my dad. As you can see, he's here with me. And you posted such great questions. There were just a few that kind of percolated to the top. So, hello, Bill, Mr. Todd, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm glad to meet with you again.
All
I'm
right,
glad to see the student responses. They've been very, very good and great use of vocabulary.
great. Okay, so one of the questions that really percolated to the top, one of my students, Wyatt, asks, what age do you think this fossil is?
Well, that is a very interesting question, and it's a very difficult question to ask and answer. And the reason for that is that we don't have any really good method at this point in time for identifying the age of a fossil. Carbon dating, for example, is only good for about 50 million years. And this is way older than that. And so the best dating we have is good for only about 5% of the time that the Earth has had organisms on it, as far as we know. So we have to depend upon stratigraphy, which means the layering of the rocks. And the simple answer is this, the simple, organisms found in one layer, another organism found above it indicates that the one above is younger than the one below, which is older. But there's lots of ways that that rock layer can get dispositioned. And so we have to be very careful.
Okay, wonderful answer. Okay, we have a second question that percolated to the top, and I think I can attribute this one to Aubrey, I think. She asks, what kind of organism do you believe it is that made this fossil?
Well, when I first looked at this at the auction house, I immediately thought this is a fossil of filamentous algae.
Mm,
And I have never seen a filamentous algae fossil like this. And the fact that it doesn't seem to have any kind of appendages other than the branching out of the algae, and
mm.
the fact that it seems to be very flat, leaves me with a suspicion that it's an algae. But to distinguish the plant from the animal, we need to know more about the cell wall. If the cell wall has cellulose, then we would know it's a plant, but we don't have any way of determining if it contains cellulose or fibrous material at this point.
So I guess from your answer there, your best prediction is that this fossil was of a filamentous algae of some type?
Yes, that's what I think. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to investigate some fossil records and see if I can find anything that resembles it. And we call those index fossils. And index fossils can be used to help relatively date objects that
Mhm.
we find.
When we did our studying in class, actually, we learned that algae is actually one of the more primitive life forms on Earth, and that some forms of algae were believed to have developed very late in the Precambrian era or even at the beginning of the Paleozoic era. So as you're doing your research, I'm interested to know, we're interested to know if you actually are able to confirm that. We
Right.
have another, we've got one last question that I just really like to hear from you on. Um, well, actually, is there a question that you would like to answer? Is there a
Yeah,
question you'd like
I
to?
think I'd raised a question I would ask is something like this. Where would you go looking for fossils?
Mm,
If you were on a fossil hunt, if you're on a treasure hunt and they want you to find fossils, where would you go?
very
Now,
interesting.
I'll give you a good insight into that. Out in Kansas, where I visit periodically, they built a lake and had to do a cut through the rock. And in the process of cutting through the rock, they exposed huge numbers of fossils. Now, most of them are marine fossils caught up in the limestone layers. What happened, though, was lots of people found the fossils and then they started whacking away at the rock and taking samples. Eventually, they have fenced it off so you can't get access to it because you don't want to destroy the relationship of the fossils and the fossils that are in there so they can be used for further study by scientists.
Great. Would you be able to share, are there any places in particular in the United States that are fairly rich in fossils?
Oh my gosh. If you go to Montana, Montana is some of the richest fossil beds known anywhere in the world, and especially for dinosaur fossils.
Mm.
But interestingly enough, fossils are found all over the world, and we're finding lots of really very good fossils in China. So there's places that have never been investigated to find good fossil specimens, but you can find them in many places. It is not a good place to look where I live right now because it's all farm real estate and you don't have rock beds that are exposed. That's what you have to have. Exposed rock beds.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Todd. Thank you for, first of all, sharing the fossil, and then secondly, for answering our questions. We are going to be learning in a virtual learning environment over the next 9 weeks, and I'm really hoping that we might be able to invite you on again and perhaps investigate some other types of phenomena that we're studying.
Let me respond with one more thought. You know, when you're out in the car driving along the interstate, a lot of times they've had to cut through the rock in order to make room for the highway. Well, every one of those cuts through the rock is layers and layers and layers of sedimentary rock. And in many of those layers, if you look carefully, you will find fossil evidence. Life has been on this planet for 3.5 billion years, we think. Have a good day, and it's been fun.
Thank you so much.